Hello and welcome to episode 812 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I am one of the co-founders here at ETR, and we're coming off of I waived the right plays kind of week. Yes, that's right. I was actually on it for tournaments this week in a big way. Had 9 tournament teams. 3 were Jameis Winston stacks. 1 was Jared Goff, Amon-Ra at 1% owned. I went for a full fade of the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game. Did a bunch of other things well. But I just fucked up some very simple, like DFS 101 spots. And I was pretty frustrated about it. Going to go through 3 of them here. So hopefully I don't do it again. First, as I said, I played 3 Jameis Winston teams in tournaments. Obviously, all 3 were double stacks, given that Jameis is not going to run much. He's not going to run for touchdowns, gets there on pass volume a lot, drags along his receivers. So all 3 were double stacks. In none of those 3 double stacks with Jameis did I play Jerry Jeudy, which is just ridiculous. And it goes back to just being overconfident on a player take. Like, yes, I preferred Cedric Tillman and David Njoku to Jerry Jeudy, but I didn't, or I wasn't, or at least I shouldn't have been that confident. I mean, Jerry Jeudy is a former round 1 pick. He's been earning targets from Jameis at roughly the same rate as Cedric Tillman. Jeudy was even coming up in some of our optimals on FanDuel at just 5,800, while Tillman was 6,500. I mean, we had Cedric Tillman for 10.9 base points, Jerry Jeudy for 9.8. Tillman 22.4 projected ceiling, which is 80th percentile outcome. Jerry Jeudy ceiling 20.4 for 700 less. And I mean, spots like this, it's just DFS 101 to include Jerry Jeudy in at least one of these stacks when he's cheaper than Cedric Tillman, projected for similar ownership, has a similar base and ceiling projection. Second mistake, again, on the Jameis Winston teams, I had 3 of them, and I did not include Taysom Hill at all on any of them. Obviously, Browns were playing the Saints, right? So even though, I didn't play any Taysom, even though tight end is so weak. And by the way, I played Taysom in cash in week 10. Week 10. I mean, I'm a Taysom guy, So to not include Taysom on any of these 3 Jameis teams is just bad because tight end is so weak. Olave, Shaheed, Bub Means, Kendra Miller, Jamal Williams, they were all out once again. Alvin Kamara was turbo chalk. And Taysom obviously was great leverage against him. When Taysom scores rushing touchdowns, when Taysom makes big plays, Kamara can't make big plays. So, and we had Taysom projected for 1% owned on FanDuel at just 6,400. He came in at 1%. And I mean, I just waived it despite having 3 Jameis teams. So bad. I mean, Taysom as part of Brown's doubles should have been a layup considering he plays tight end, his ceiling, and the way that I was playing that game to go with getting wild with Jameis. Last one I don't think is as bad, but I played Jared Goff single stack with Amon-Ra St. Brown. At Jared Goff's elevated price, when he's a pocket passer, I mean, he just needs a nuclear passing game to get there. And I knew that, but my thinking was I thought it could be spread out enough where a single could actually be optimal. But thinking through it more now, I mean, if Goff needs to throw 3 or 4 touchdowns and throw for 300, 350 yards to be optimal at quarterback at his price, it's more than likely that one guy is going to get there. So instead of just Goff, Amon-Ra, which I had, it almost certainly should have been Goff, Amon-Ra, J-Mo, or Goff, Amon-Ra, Brock Wright, or Goff, Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs. So yeah, felt like I was on it for tournaments this week and still lost money playing them. Tilting, but hopefully won't make the same mistakes again. As for the cash slate in week 11, had a really good week on DraftKings. These weeks where it's obvious that you have to play 3 running backs, and we have a sub 4K tight end option, and we have sub 6K quarterback options. I mean, some would call it a prove it week. Play a lot of head-to-head, make opponents prove that they know that Juwan Jennings without Kittle and Ayuk is a must, that Kamara, CMC, Achane are must, regardless of result. And again, in the $25 single entry double up, Kamara was only 55%. Juwan Jennings, 62%. Achan and CMC, high 70s. Jameis Winston, only 23%. So, yeah, it was really good action on DraftKings this week, I thought. As for FanDuel, the last 2v2 I looked at was Bo Nix and Will Dissly versus Justin Herbert and Dawson Knox. Our projections had the Nix Dissly side about a point ahead. I now waive that. Wanted to bet on the two guys I thought were just better at football. I think Herbert at this point is better than Bo Nix. I think Dawson Knox is better than Will Dissly, although that might be an egregious take considering how well Will Dissly's playing right now. But got that one shoved down my throat. Knox and Herbert were good. Nix and Dissly were great. But look, when things are within a point in projection and I want to IKB, aka I know better, I'm going to IKB it. I've talked about this plenty on the show. I'm not going to sweat that too hard. I will say, I've gotten Will Dissly wrong. I've played him when he's totally failed. I've done things like this, played Knox over him when he's played really well. I think I've gotten Will Dissly wrong like at least 16 times in a row. It's really crazy. Need to get to listener questions, but before I do, I just wanted to highlight this Kevin Durant tweet. I retweeted it. Hopefully you guys saw it. Obviously, I don't know Kevin Durant. He strikes me as way too sensitive at times, but I don't really follow his takes or know too much about him. But I have seen that he's been beaking at these clown, quote unquote, bettors who bet, the over under props on Underdog and Prize Picks, or the clowns who bet the player prop SGPs and that bitch at players on social. Anyway, someone called Durant out the other day, and his reply was, "No, I tell you to stop complaining about this life that you've committed to. When you lose," he's talking about, betting the parlays or whatever. He says, "When you lose, there's finger pointing. When you win, there's gloating about how smart you are and seeing the future. No gratitude toward the service workers like myself. I'm sick of it." Obviously he's not a service worker. He plays basketball, and makes hundreds of millions of dollars. But man, I hope all these people that bitch at athletes all the time about their losses, which to me is just pathetic. Like, I hope that they see this Durant tweet and think about it and digest it. It is not Kevin Durant's fault if he goes under his points line one night. It is on you for a bad projection, a bad bet, And that should be really simple, but it also ignores the other really simple fact that these fucking brain dead morons fail to admit that they can bet the under. Like, I don't think these people think they're allowed to. I think in their head, they would rather just not bet than bet the under. Where, by the way, I feel the opposite. If I can't bet the under, I'd rather not bet. But anyway, I have no take on Durant as a whole, but man, I hope the tweet that he sent goes mega viral. Everyone sees it. Good stuff, not just for betting, but for life. When bad things happen, people love to blame others or play victim or whatever. When good things happen, people love to tell everyone how great they are and how smart they are. And I get it. It's natural. I'm sure I do it too without even noticing. But shout out to Durant for speaking up a lot against a lot of these people who just, don't get it on gambling. All right. Need to get to listener questions. But before I do, important announcement. We will be running a Thanksgiving week sale on our NFL in-season products. You'll be able to try 1 week of in-season for just $9.99, normally $28.99. Also, 1 month will be on sale for $39.99, normally $79.99. That sale will start the Monday of Thanksgiving week and last 7 days. So if you want to try access to our in-season product, which means projections, Silva's matchups, our premium shows like Establish the Show, Establish the Million, Last Minute Live Stream, stay tuned for that sale next week. All right. Enough is enough. It is time for everyone's favorite portion of the program, the listener questions. Question 1 comes from Christopher. He says, "Believe it or not, my wife loves listening to your solo pod, but we have to listen to audio only instead of YouTube because seeing the faces behind the radio voices really weirds her out. Is this normal? Have you heard anything like this before? Thanks." Christopher, it's crazy, man. A ton of people have told me their girlfriend, their fiance, their wife listen to the solo pod, which is insane. I've probably interacted with roughly 13 women in my entire life. To think there are dozens or hundreds or maybe even 1,000 women listening to this, I mean, that makes me pretty nervous, to be honest. But it leads to the obvious question: why, right? Why do some women connect with this? And I've thought about it. I really think that everyone is just starved for authenticity in today's increasingly fake world. I think women actually want to know. I think they're actually fascinated by how certain men actually think. And like, if you're into this show, you probably think about things maybe similarly to the way I do. And so this gives your wife a window into it. And like, you guys know, I always just try to be as honest and transparent as possible about everything. So maybe women learn something about the way men like us think. Call Her Daddy was or is, I'm not really sure, the number one podcast in the entire world. And I'm certain you don't get to be the number one podcast in the entire world. It's not just only women listening to it. I think women listen to Call Her Daddy because a girl talking about dating and eating pole and whatever else, she's doing it authentically. It's actually fascinating. A lot of men, including me, really have no idea what women are actually thinking about typically. But I don't know. I think that's it. If there's any women out there listening, would love to know why. Why you're listening. Don't worry. I'll try not to be creepy. Speaking of which, I was in a poker game last night. A woman there is telling this story about how during the pandemic, she had a Zoom call for work. First meeting, halfway through the call, guy just says, oh, I have something you're going to like, and takes his cock out. I mean, God, these guys are such animals. It's wild. I mean, come on. There's got to be something in between, me, total scared money, and you, taking your cock out on Zoom. But anyway, circling back to the original question, Christopher, about people going audio only, not wanting to see YouTube, buddy, I prefer it. Like I think actually for some of our shows, like team by team, you're better off watching on YouTube. It's better with all the graphics and the highlights and everything. Same with Establish a Show. Same with Establish a Million, so you can see what we're saying on screen. If there's women out there, I'd rather just audio. It's perfectly fine, Christopher. Question 2 from Vito. He says, how/when do you figure out when you're going to be playing DFS for the upcoming week? Asked because I realize this is only the second Monday, Thursday slate I've played so far this year. Yeah, good question. In terms of figuring out how much you're going to play this week or if you're going to play, I think it depends how big you want to play. Like for me, I want to get as much head-to-head action as possible every single week. I'm not taking a week off because I'm doing this stuff every week anyway. So I post these head-to-heads as early as I can, as soon as I can, each week. I figure it's good action regardless of slate context. And then for me, we work so hard on main slate stuff. I'm thinking about main slate all week. I'm talking about it. So every week, I make myself play as many main slate tournaments as I can stomach. But I'm not everyone. I think it's a leak for most people to play the same amount every week. There is absolutely no rule whatsoever. Like, if you don't like the setup of the week, if you don't see an angle that you like, of course you can play less than you normally would. You can say, hey, fuck this. Main slate is too big. I'm going to play 1 p.m. only this week. Or I have this 6 sleeper that no one's talking about in X game. It's too thin for main slate. I'll just play Showdown for that game. This is all part of the game selection stuff that I've been talking about for so long. Playing well is half the battle. Certainly the hardest part. The easier part is understanding the right contest and the right contest for you. And that might change on a week-to-week basis. But, if you're just rate conscious, play single entry 3 max, play smaller field, look for flattish payout structures, I think that's a great start. Yeah. Question 3 from Spencer. He says, how do you convince yourself things are going to be okay after a bad play? I.e., I went Galaxy Brain over the weekend and played Darnold over Kyler in a high-stakes league. I think this was from a few weeks ago. Lost my matchup because of it, and now I have to fight for a playoff spot. What's your advice on the best way to cope a bad play when it can cost you thousands? So I think 2 parts here. First, much like life, fantasy football, DFS is a game of incomplete information. Our job is very simple. Make the best decision with the information that we have at that time, period. The healthiest way to do this is to be completely detached from the results. And believe me, that is not easy. I'm not great at it, but I've gotten infinitely better, over the last 20 years or whatever. With the information you had at the time, you thought Darnold over Kyler was right. Period. End of story. Results are what they are. I get that's not practical. I fucking tilt my face off all the time, but it's the goal. The second part is just in all aspects of life, we can only control what we can control. This is like therapy 101, but life is already so hard. Sitting around worrying about shit out of our hands, it's just not going to lead to a happy life. And so you can't do anything about losing a flip between Darnold and Kyler. Letting that affect you, Spencer, you just got to tell yourself, I made the best decision I could with the information I had. That moment is gone. I am going to get thousands more decisions every day for the rest of my life. I'm going to make the best ones I can, and that's it. All right. Question 4, last question we're going to do today comes from DFS Clutch Boy. He says, how long have you been playing USTA tennis, and how long did it take you to grind from a 3.0 to where you are now? I've recently started playing in USTA leagues, a 3.0, and I feel stone cold addicted. Tell us a bit about your tennis life. Yeah, I love it. Love any tennis bros out there. Shout out to you, DFS Clutch Boy. So I played a little bit growing up, never seriously, never played USTA, never played in high school. But my summer job during high school and college was coaching little kids in tennis. I mean, and I would get out there at 8 a.m., coach kids until 4 p.m. Shout out to Rob Carvajal. He owned this youth tennis program and let me coach these kids. Anyway, all I played growing up was basketball. I mean, literally every day from the time I was probably 8 or 9 to 18, played basketball every day. Didn't start thinking or playing tennis again until I was probably 30 years old or so. Started playing some bets against other poker players. And it kind of snowballed from there where I was playing a ton to get ready for the bets, the frying pan match against Bass, that match against Michael Levy that we put on YouTube. I started getting coaching for those matches when I was in Philly. When I moved to Denver, I started working with Coach Greg to get ready for the Brandon Adams matches. Been playing in the 4-5 USTA league just to get match play in, stay sharp for bets. I think just advice for DFS Clutch Boy. I think the best thing for both I would say your game and your health, especially if you're at 3.0 right now, is just to adjust your mindset. I used to get out there and tell myself, okay, my forehand is huge. I'm just going to blast this guy. And that is just the absolute wrong mentality to go into a practice session or a match with. I am not good enough to blast through anyone. I was watching way too much pro tennis. They make it look so easy. My mindset has to be, I am going to grind my fucking cock to a nub every single point. I'm going to be in incredible physical shape. I'm going to put every ball in play. I'd rather digest a whole Thanksgiving turkey with anal stuffing than let a ball bounce twice in front of me. Like, it just doesn't fucking happen no matter what. And I'm going to grind and grind and grind until I get a short ball, until I get a forehand in my wheelhouse before I even think about pulling the trigger. And like, that style is so much better for the workout that I get when I'm playing tennis, and also just for playing a winning strategy. The easiest people to play against are the people who think they're better than they are. They try to hit big and they just spray the ball everywhere. So I don't know. I hope that helps, DFS Clutch Boy. Good luck out there between the lines. Love it. All right. That is going to do it for this week's solo pod. We'll be back later today with Daigle for waiver wire, and later tonight with Silva for team by team for in-season subscribers. First run of week 11, week 12 projections, I believe, actually, will be out Wednesday night. Me, Silva, and Wiggins establish a show Friday night, talking every player in every week 12 game. For producer Luke, for Jerry, my one true love, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.